Guys, in this video we'll be doing control and coordination, so let's go. So coordination is basically the synchronization between different parts of our body to work together for various processes or activities to occur. Obviously, a lot of parts of our body, they need to work together, right? Different parts of our body need to work together in order to bring do a lot of processes or activities for our body which is needed, right? So synchronization between different parts of our body to work together for various processes or activities to occur. Okay, so now we are going to see how control and coordination can occur. So there are two types, which is the nervous system and the hormonal system. So now let us see what is a nervous system. So nervous system includes a network of nerves. So these nerves, informations or signals are transported from one part of the body to another. So next let us see what is a human nervous system. So it is like a wiring system in our body, like a wiring, like there are so many wires in our house which give us electricity, right? Like that, the wiring inside our body are basically nerves. So we have two types of nervous system, which is the CNS and PNS. CNS is the central nervous system. So CNS is basically, it consists of the spinal cord and the brain. Okay, so it consists of the spinal cord and the brain. So it takes information from one part of our body to another. Now let us see what is PNS. PNS is peripheral nervous system, and this includes the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. Cranial nerves are nerves which are arising from our brain to and are connected to all parts of our body, and nerves which are arising from the spinal cord and are connected to all parts of our body are known as spinal nerves. And and all the nerve cells are made up of all the nerves are made up of cells called as neuron, nerve cell called as neuron. So all nerves are made up of nerve cells called neuron. Now let us see what is a neuron. Nerve cell or a neuron is actually, it is made up of a specialized cell. Nerves are actually made up of a specialized cell which can act as a basic structural or fundamental unit of the nervous system. So nerves are made up of a specialized cell, and these act as a basic fundamental or a structural unit of the nervous system. So what are nerves? Nerves are actually, nerves are made up of, what are the nerves? How are nerves made up of? Nerves are obviously made up of nerve cells, right? So these nerves are made up of a specialized cell which can act as a basic functional or a structural unit. Okay, now let us see the structure of neuron. So first, this is the cell body, which is called as the cyton, and these three like things are there. No, they are called as the dendrites, and this thing inside the cyton is the nucleus, and the long tube-like structure which is arising from the cyton is the axon, and on both sides of the axon there is a thin layer of myelin sheath, and next at the ends of this axon we can say this part as a nerve ending, because obviously the nerve is ending here only, no? So we can say it as a nerve ending, or we can also say axonal end, like that, axonal end or nerve ending also you can say. Now let us see functions of each of these dendrites, cyton, axon, and nerve ending. Let us see all of the functions of these. So dendrites actually are like thread-like structures which arise from the cyton. Let us understand that. So they are thread-like structures, right, which arise from the cyton. So this is the cyton. So they arise from the cyton, right? So they are saying that they are thread-like structures which arise from the cyton, and they collect the signal or information from the outside and pass it through the axon. So these thread-like structures are there. No, they actually take information from the outside, and these will pass it through the axon like this. Okay, and they will pass the information from the outside to the axon. So what do? They are thread-like structures. They arise from the cyton, and they collect signals or information from the outside and pass it to the axon. Now let us come to the cyton. Cyton is a cell body which contains a nucleus and the dendrites. So this is the cyton, right? I told you, right? This whole part is the cyton. So here, what does the cyton contain? These are the dendrites, and this is the nucleus. And this is what does the cyton contain? It contains the nucleus and the dendrites. Now let us see what is an axon. Axon is a long tube-like structure which arises from the cell body and passes information to the nerve endings. So if you see, it's like a long tube-like structure, right? It's a long tube-like structure which takes the information from the cyton, from this cell body. From this cell body, the information is going like this. Okay, the information will go like this. So from the outside, from the environment, this will take the information, and from here the information will go to the axon, and from the axon will basically take the information from the cell body, and it will give it to the nerve ending or the axonal end. So, and where does the axon arise from? It arises from the cyton, which is the cell body. So a long tube-like structure arises from the cell body and passes the information passes the information to the nerve endings. So it arises from the cell body, right? It arises from the cell body, and it passes the information to the nerve ending, that is this part. Okay. So now let us see how information passes from one neuron to another. We saw inside a neuron how information passes through the dendrites, axon, and the axonal end, which is the nerve ending. We saw all that. But let us see how information is getting transported from one whole neuron to another whole neuron. So dendrites actually help in detecting signals or information through the receptors. Receptors are actually sense organs. So what are sense organs? We know like eyes, ears, nose, tongues, which basically give us sense, right? So these actually are sense organs, and the receptors are basically, receptors means it's they have sense organs only. Receptors are sense organs. So dendrites actually help to detect the signals or information through receptors. Obviously the sense organs will only help the dendrites to take information from the outside. So what are the sense organs? The organs gives us sense, right? We are able to see, and our skin we are able to touch, right? And eyes we are able to see like light, and nose we are able to smell, tongue we are able to taste, ears we are able to hear. So all of these are sense organs because they give us a feel of sense, right? So now receptors are I told like receptors are of 5 kinds. Let us see all the 5 kinds. So receptors, where are they present? First, they are present in the sense organs and they respond to stimuli. Stimuli is basically the change in environment. For example, if you pinch your hand, you will feel we are able to feel the pain, right? That is because of the receptors. Because you are able to feel the pain the moment you pinch your hand, then it will directly go to your brain through the receptors. The receptors are present in the sense organs and they respond to the stimuli, that is the change in environment. So if we pinch our skin, we can feel it, and this feeling we get it from the receptors. Okay, so now let us see the different types of receptors. As I told, there are 5 types. First is thigmoreceptors, which is for the skin, that is to touch. Next you have gustadoreceptors, that is for taste and tongue. And next we have photoreceptors, photoreceptors, that is for eye, that is light. And we have phono, this is not dudio guys, it's not dudio, it is phonoreceptors for ears. PHONO, phonoreceptors for ear, that is sound. Next, olfactoreceptors, which is for nose, which is to smell. Got it? So there are 5 types of receptors, which is thigmoreceptor, gustatorreceptor, photoreceptor, phonoreceptor, and olfactoreceptor. Okay, so these are the 5 types of receptors. And what is a receptors? Receptors is basically the sense organs. And where are they present? They are present in the sense organs only. Where are the receptors? They are present in the sense organs, and they respond to stimuli. Receptors are present in the sense organs and they respond to stimuli, which is the change in environment. For example, if we pinch our skin, we can feel it, and this feeling we get it from the receptors. Got it? Now let us see how the I told right how the information is carried from one whole neuron to another whole neuron. So so now the information is carried in the form of electric impulse, that is electricity, by the dendrites to the axon, right? So it is going like an electric impulse, like how, for example, this is a wire. Okay, wait. This is a wire and this is another wire, right? So from this wire to this wire, it will go it will go like an electric impulse, right? It will go very fast. Like that only information is transformed from one neuron to another neuron. Okay, so that's how information is transported from one neuron to another neuron. So that is basically, the information is carried in the form of an electric impulse, like electricity, by the dendrites to the axon, or axonal end, you can say. So next let us see the electric impulse, how it reaches from one I will draw it so that I can like show you. Oh shit, sorry. Right, let me change the color so that. So electric impulse reaches from one axon to another nerve ending, right? So now let us see what is a synapse. A synapse is like the gap. This is the gap, right? The gap between one dendrite. Okay, so this is this is an axonal end, right? So the gap between this one of an axonal end and the and a dendrite of another and a new dendrite. So basically the gap between the nerve ending of one neuron. So it's the gap between the nerve ending. This is the nerve ending of one neuron and the dendrite of another neuron. So this is like the dendrite of another neuron. So this gap, if you see, this gap between them, this gap is basically called as a synapse. Okay, this gap is called the synapse. So the gap between the nerve ending of one neuron and the dendrite of another neuron is known as synapse, and the nerve impulse passes through the synapse then to the dendrites of another neuron. So what is it? The nerve impulse will pass through the synapse and then pass to the dendrite of another neuron. So obviously, right, from just imagine, so this is the axonal end. So from this axonal end, it will go to the nerve endings, right? So from the nerve ending, there will be synapse, and then only it will go to the new dendrite. Okay. You understand, right? So when the nerve impulse passes through the synapse, first the nerve impulse, where will it passes? The nerve ending, the nerve impulse will pass to the synapse and then to the dendrites of another neuron and so on. So when it passes through the neuron, its electrical energy will so when it passes through the neuron, that is, if this is particularly the neuron, when it passes through the neuron, it is electrical energy. Okay, electrical energy. But when it is passing through one neuron to, that is the nerve ending of one neuron to the dendrite of another neuron, then it will become chemical energy. So when it is passing through the gap between the neurons, okay, so the gap between the neurons, it's a chemical energy. So what is it? The nerve impulses pass through the synapse and then to the dendrites of another neuron and so on. So when it passes through the neuron, it is electrical energy, and when it passes through the gap between the two neurons, then it is chemical energy. So now let us see the human brain. So we have so many things in the human brain. So let us see, this is the most interesting part. So I will tell this diagram first. Okay. So I'll tell a simple way how to remember this. So if you see this part, right, this part is the forebrain. That is, fore means like first, right? So the first, like this glob is the forebrain. Remember like that. And next, what is the hindbrain? This part, from this part to this part, that is the middle part, right? From this part, okay, this part to this part, it is the hindbrain. Now let us see what is the midbrain. The midbrain is actually here. It is there like a small glob, like here, like in the middle. And this part is the hypothalamus. Okay, we'll see all the functions of this hypothalamus. All of this we'll see. I'm just telling you now. So next, the order is cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata, right? So cerebellum is like this, like leaf like thing, and next we have pons, which is like this part, that is, there are two globs like this, right? So after the end of the second glob, it is pons, and next at the end of this like thing is there, no? The end of this is basically medulla oblongata. Then this is cerebellum. Now what is cerebrum? Cerebrum, it comes in the forebrain. So forebrain only it comes. No, that means it will be here somewhere. So that means it's here. That is all. That is the cerebrum. Cerebellum will come to the hindbrain. So that's why it is coming, right? You can see the hindbrain, this part, and this is only the midbrain. And now this is the pituitary gland. If you see this I told, right, there are like two kinds of globs like this. So the first glob is actually the pituitary gland. Okay, if you see here, there are two globs like this. The first glob is pituitary gland, and the second gland only is actually the pons. The second gland is there. No, the second glob, sorry. This first glob is the pituitary gland, and the second glob is pons, and this part is medulla, and this part is cerebrum, and cerebellum, and this part is cerebrum, and this part is forebrain, and this part is hindbrain, and and this one is hypothalamus, and this is the midbrain. Okay. Now let us see what are the three parts of the human brain. It is the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. What is it? Forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So forebrain means it is this part, right? It is this part. So forebrain actually only consists of the cerebrum. So let us see what is the cerebrum, what is the functions of cerebrum, and what it does, what it helps us basically. So cerebrum actually consists, it's basically forebrain consists of cerebrum. It is the main thinking part of our brain. It involves all the thinking actions, and it's like the main coordinating part of the brain as well. And it basically it maintains all the mental abilities, and it is seats for intelligent and memory. And all voluntary actions are also controlled by the forebrain, like walking, talking, running, and all of these are thinking. These are actions which involve our thinking process. They involve our thinking process. So that's why they are voluntary actions. So all voluntary actions are controlled by the cerebrum, and these actually involve our thinking process, like walking, talking, and running. And because they are the main coordinating part of our body, they control all the voluntary actions. And that is their forebrain. We can also forebrain, that is, it consists of cerebrum, right? We can say that it is the thinking part of the brain, and it is a seat for intelligence and memory, and it also can maintain our mental abilities, and it can understand various things from the sense organs. So what is it? Forebrain consists of the cerebrum, which is the thinking part of the brain, and it is the main coordinating part of the body, and it maintains our mental abilities, and it's a seat for intelligence and memory. And by all voluntary actions are controlled by the cerebrum, and voluntary actions are actions which we can control, which depend on our thinking process, right? Which depend on our thinking process are actually the voluntary actions. For example, walking, talking, running, and all, they depend on our thinking process. So these is controlled by the cerebrum. So next, it can also understand various things from the sense organs. So now we are coming to the hindbrain, and if they ask you about the midbrain, it controls involuntary functions. That's all. Hindbrain will also control involuntary functions only. That is actions that we can't control, like heartbeat, digestion, breathing, and all that is controlled by the hindbrain and the midbrain. But let me tell you about the midbrain first. The midbrain, there is nothing told in your book, so leave that. So midbrain, just understand it will control involuntary actions. That's all. Now coming to the hindbrain. Hindbrain will also control involuntary actions, but it is divided into three, which is cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. And let us see. We saw about the forebrain or midbrain. I told you have to just think that it controls the involuntary actions, and hindbrain also controls the involuntary actions like heartbeat, digestion, breathing. So the hindbrain is divided into three, which is cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. Now let us see what is the cerebellum. Cerebellum is always for the forebrain, and cerebellum is only for the hindbrain. So cerebellum actually maintains our body posture. For example, when you are walking on a thin road or when you are riding a bicycle and all, cerebellum will mainly help for maintaining our body posture or body balance. Next we have pons. Pons will regulate our breathing or respiratory process. And next we have the medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata actually controls our heartbeat, digestion, blood pressure, etc. And it can also control the vomiting sensation, sneezing, coughing, and all. So what is cerebellum? Cerebellum maintains our body posture and body balance. Pons regulates respiration and breathing process. Medulla oblongata controls heartbeat, digestion, and blood pressure, etc. And it can also control sneezing, vomiting, and coughing. Let us see how our brain is being protected. So our brain is actually being protected by a bony structure which is called as a skull, and it has three layers, and which is called as meninges. And between these three layers there is actually a liquid which is called as a cerebrospinal fluid, and this liquid actually protects our brain by creating a buoyancy. That's like a floating kind of feel. So inside our skull we have three soft layers which is called as meninges. The gaps between these meninges is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. So to protect this our brain by creating a buoyancy, this protects our brain by creating a buoyancy. And this is basically, that is like it basically like protects our brain by creating a buoyancy. Now let us see a spinal cord. Spinal cord is a soft soft organ which extends from the hypothalamus. From the medulla of our brain to our lumbar region. So we know, right, this medulla oblongata is like at the end of this, right? So I told the hypothalamus because this is also kind of the end, so don't get confused like that. From the medulla to our lumbar region, which is the butt region. Okay, so yeah. So the spinal cord is a thin, what is it? A spinal cord is a thin, it's a not thin, it's a soft organ that extends from the medulla of our brain to our lumbar region, which is the butt area. And this spinal cord is protected by something called as a vertebral column. This is known as our backbone. So what is the spinal cord? It extends from the sense organ, that is the medulla of our brain, to our lumbar region, which is the butt area. And this spinal cord is protected by which is something called as the vertebral column, which is also known as the backbone. Now let us see the functions of the spinal cord. So this mainly controls the reflex actions. What is a reflex action? It is actions which are like immediate or sudden or immediate response, instant response, right? So actions of our body for which the response is very sudden or instant, and this is controlled by the spinal cord. So let us just read it. You will understand I have told with an example here. So that is basically, if we touch hot water, we will take our hand from the hot water immediately, right? It's happening all of a sudden, automatic, immediate, or instant action. Instant or automatic action is done by our body is reflex action, and this is controlled by the spinal cord. So what does it mainly? It controls the reflex action. What does the spinal cord do? It mainly controls the reflex action. That is, for example, if we touch the hot water, we will immediately take our hand out of the hot water, and this action is immediate, instant, or sudden, right? So this action is done by our body is actually the reflex action. So this is controlled by the spinal cord. What is controlled by the spinal cord? The reflex action is controlled by the spinal cord. So again, what is the reflex action? It is the actions of our body to which the action is sudden, instant, and immediate, and it is controlled by the spinal cord. So what is it? The actions of our body in which it is sudden or automatic or instant, and these actions are actually controlled by the spinal cord. And for the example, if they ask you, you can tell the hand example, like if we touch, it will like go like all that, you can tell. Now we are coming to the hormonal system. We completed the nerve system, and we saw in the nerve system we saw about the central and peripheral. Next we saw about the backbone. Next we also saw about the brain. Right. Now we are coming to the hormonal system. But before that, I will revise the backbone or the spinal cord once more. So what is the spinal cord? Is a soft organ that extends from the medulla of our brain to the lumbar region, which is the butt area, and this spinal cord is protected by something called as a vertebral column, which is also our backbone. The spinal cord mainly controls our reflex action. For example, if we touch the hot water, we will immediately take our hand off it. This action is immediate, sudden, or an automatic action which is happening in our body. This is actually a reflex action. This is controlled by our spinal cord. So what are reflex actions? Again, actions of our body to which the response is sudden, instant, or immediate. It is known as a and this is also controlled by the spinal cord, and that is called as a reflex action. Now let us come to the hormonal system. So here we have about the hormonal system, and then we have different types of endocrine glands which are there in the humans. Then after the different types of glands, we have we have what, see, it's still going, adrenal gland, all of these glands are there. And then we have coordination and plants, how different types of hormones work in plants. And which is next, finally we have the growth dependent movement and the growth independent movement. We'll see examples for that, and then we can end this lesson. We'll come to the next part. I've created a playlist. Thanks for watching.